Welcome back to Go Long Live with Barry Long 2. Do not forget the 2. I am Barry Long the second, and we are coming to you live on CoachellaValley.com as well as today'scalifornia.com. So thank you everyone who is subscribing, who is liking the page. If you want to watch it live on Facebook, what you do is you need to click on CoachellaValley.com's page and like it. And then a little feed will pop up every time that we are live. As well as click on today'scalifornia.com or their Facebook page and like that as well. And then we'll pop up live for you there. You can comment on the screen right here, and then I can interact with you live. So please just comment. Feel free to say whatever you'd like. Just make sure you keep it clean. I'd like to thank Craig Campbell from CoachellaValley.com for allowing me to be on this platform, and also like to thank him from Today's California. And once again, this is Go Long Live with Barry Long 2. Don't forget the 2. And we're going to talk a lot of different sports. We're just going to talk whatever today's sports stories are. I'm coming to you live from Indio, California. It is hot as hell here. It is actually 111 degrees here today. So pray for me, y'all. Pray for me, y'all. So let's just jump right into it. Last night we had a great game between the Bucks and the Hawks, but the night before we had the Clippers and the Suns. And what a performance by a legendary performer in Chris Paul. He came out and he really just solidified his status in Game 6 with a 41-point performance, 8 assists and 4 rebounds. And I was just really happy to see him. He's been through a lot in the past 16 years that he's been in the league. Of course, we know, all the years that he was with, bad teams with the Hornets. And then we saw him get with the Lob City Clippers. And that team had never had 50 wins in a season before Chris Paul got there, ever in the history of the team. He gets there. They have 5 straight 50-win seasons. But every year, it seemed like he had an issue going into the playoffs. It was an injury. It was a hamstring one year, a hip flexor. One year, it was Blake Griffin getting hurt one year. Of course, we remember the year that they were up 3-1 against the Rockets, and they lost to that series. So he's been through a lot, and not even just in his career. This man has been through a lot in the past season. We know that early in the playoffs against my Lakers, he injured his shoulder on a freak accident. We know that he tested positive for COVID, so he missed 2 games this series. We know that it seems like he's shooting a State Farm commercial every week at this point this season. So we know that he's a busy man. And on top of that, he's the NBA Players Association president. So we know that he's been through a lot. And it was just great to see him finally be able to reach that plateau of his first ever NBA Finals. And to do it in that building, like we mentioned last episode, was very special. And, he had great performances by his teammates, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. They both came in. Devin Booker had 20 points. Ayton had 16 points and 17 rebounds. He had great performances by his role players. Cameron Payne, he had 7 points and 7 assists. So he definitely had a lot of help from around him. But the main thing was he solidified himself. He was aggressive. 41 points, 8 assists. He probably would have been in double-digit assists had he not asserted himself aggressively on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm just happy to see him. Every time the Clippers came down with something, he had an answer for him. So Chris Paul, he definitely deserved to be celebrated that evening. But that his whole performance was almost overshadowed by Patrick Beverley in this shove right here, which was one of the most Bush League things I've ever seen in sports. We've seen moves like this happen before, but Patrick Beverley was basically just getting cooked. He was getting cooked on the offensive side. On the defensive side of the ball, Chris Paul, he was just doing him dirty left and right. And we know he was talking smack. We know there was trash talk between these two. And Patrick Beverley basically let his emotions get the best of him. And he pushed Chris Paul. And with everything that Chris Paul has been through, bro, you could have injured him seriously right there. There's a whiplash factor that's definitely at play in there. And Chris Paul he's been in the league 16 years. He's 35, 36 years old. His body is not the freshest, okay? So that anything could have happened. And we talked about it how all these stars have been going down in the playoffs. And when you go to an NBA game or you watch an NBA game on TV, you want to see the stars. You want to see LeBron James when you go to the Lakers. You want to go see AD when you go watch the Lakers. You don't want to see Dennis Schroeder and KCP, Kentavious Caldwell Poop. Okay? Yes, I said it. Kentavious Caldwell Poop. But yeah, so Patrick Beverley, man, he lost his temper, and he did come out and apologize on Twitter and said that it was a mistake and he lost his head for a little bit. First of all, I don't know what is on his head. I mean, I know those are dreads, but they're not locked. Those are dreadlocks, but they're not locked. They're dreads. So anyway, Patrick Beverley, he's a veteran point guard in this league, and he's a scrappy player. He's not a great passer. He's not a great shooter. I wouldn't even say he's a good shooter, but he is a hell of a defender. And he made it into the NBA by scratching and crawling, literally. And he did a lot of good things in this series, as far as trying to contain Devin Booker, trying to contain Chris Paul. He did a lot of good things in this series. But what he did right there, there's no excuse for it whatsoever. There's no place for it in sports. It's Bush League. And even though he apologized, I still feel like he deserves some kind of suspension. His season's over because Chris Paul ended his season, but I feel like he deserves a suspension at some point. So we're definitely going to keep our eye on that. But Patrick Beverley, man, for you to go and shove Chris Paul, who is the Players Association president, so you're going to have to come see him at some point. It's just a ridiculous thing. And the last thing we need is Chris Paul to be out of the NBA Finals because of some stupid choice made by Patrick Beverley. But on the flip side, we did see this man, Devin Booker, step up to the plate as well once again. And he didn't have to be as aggressive as he has in previous games, game 2, when Chris Paul was out due to COVID-19 restrictions. But he did assert himself. He scored 22 points. He had 4 rebounds and he had 7 assists, which is pretty good for a guy who plays on the perimeter for the primary part of his game. But Devin Booker has really become a superstar. And before Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, passed away, he talked about Devin Booker and he talked about how impressed he was with his style of play. Just had a lot of good things to say about him. Said that he was one of his favorite young players to watch in the league. And a lot of people have had a lot of good things to say about Devin Booker, including LeBron James, after he cooked LeBron James and the Lakers and my Lakers in round 1 of this playoff series. But Devin Booker is becoming a household name, and he was a first round number 13 overall draft pick out of Kentucky in 2015. So he's been around for a while. This man is making he just signed a max deal. So he's making over $150 million over the course of 5 years. He's become a household name to a lot of people that are into pop culture because, of course, he's one of the Kardashian ladies. He's dating Kendall Jenner. And I just hope that he is not ruined like some of the other athletes' careers have been ruined when they start with those Kardashian girls. So Kendall Jenner is hopefully different. She's not into plastic surgery and all that. So hopefully she is not going to ruin Devin Booker's career. Hopefully he doesn't let the spotlight go to his head. Devin Booker has ascended and he's become a superstar in this league. Now, when we talk about the Clippers, once again, we are live on CoachellaValley.com, live on today'scalifornia.com. Please feel free to comment. I can comment live. If you comment live, I can comment back to you live. This is an interactive show. Go Long Live with Barry Long. And I am Barry Long, too. Do not forget to. Thank you to everyone who is supporting. Thank you to Craig Campbell and CoachellaValley.com for hosting us on this platform. All right, so it was a great performance by the Suns. Now let's talk about the Clippers. Ty Lue has been undermanned. I mean, let's just face it. The Clippers have gone 2 series. They've gone to Game 7, and they're just tired, man. And Ty Lue, he's a great coach. He's put up with a lot this season as far as not having his full roster. And it was great to watch him, try to use all the strategies that he had to use in order to stay afloat in the playoffs. But he doesn't have Serge Ibaka. Zubac has been hurt. Of course, we know that Kawhi Leonard is not there, so they're missing a lot of their length inside the paint. And so what they've had to resort to is running a zone. And literally, they're getting killed in points in the paint. They're getting killed in rebounds, and that's just a result of their injury. And like I said in the previous episode, on Wednesday episode, that it's just crazy that that he had to play a guy named Jay Scrub. And I told you he must be a scrub because I've never heard of Scrub. But this is Jay Scrub. I thought since we mentioned him twice in the show that we should show Jay Scrub a little bit of love. He's worked hard to get to the league, and he is now on the Clippers roster, but he's still a scrub. All right, but yeah, we their leading scorer was Marcus Morris. Thank you, Robert Puentes, for saying cool show. I really appreciate love. We are on CoachellaValley.com and today'scalifornia.com. Check us out live on Facebook. Shout out to Craig Campbell. And yeah, just keep commenting, keep posting, keep liking the page, keep sharing posts. We need as many shares as we can get. Once again, my name is Barry Long 2, Barry Long II, and we are coming to you live from Indio, California, the place where Coachella Fest happens and everything. But let's get back into the Clippers. So yeah, underman, they're playing a zone. Their leading scorer was Marcus Morris, which you can't have. You got to have Paul George step up. We've seen Reggie Jackson have big games in this series. We've seen Terrence Mann have big games in this postseason. Terrence Mann played like a grown ass man, pun intended, in game 7 of the last series. So we've seen these guys step up to the plate, but they are role players, and role players don't always perform that well in consistent games. So it was a tough game. Paul George came in with 21 points, but PG is going to have to be off P in order for this team to survive with all the injuries that they've had. And yeah, we're joined live right now by Craig Campbell. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Accidentally just popped in, but okay. Want to say hi. Right back to you, man. That was just a short time out. Get back on that court.
No problem. Okay, so yeah, we are live on Go Long Live with Barry Long 2. Don't forget the 2. And we are talking, the today's best sports stories. So please comment, please like the page, please share the post. But yeah, we're talking about the Clippers right now, and they just had a rough time. But Tyronn Lue, he is hats off to him. He pushed his butt off as best as he could. It just didn't have enough, and the Clippers ended up eventually falling to the Suns. And like I said, this Suns team feels like it's a team of destiny. It feels like a team, sort of like when Kawhi Leonard had that great run with the Toronto Raptors, when Dirk Nowitzki had that great run with Dallas. Many years ago. So it feels like a team of destiny, and all the injuries that are happening on the Eastern Conference side of the things is really kind of why it feels like it's all setting up to be a Cinderella story. But we had another game yesterday. We had the Bucks and the Hawks, and this game was pretty much over after the first quarter. I mean, I know that the Hawks hung around and down by 10 for most of the game, but they got outscored very much early on, and it just felt like the Bucks, it was their night. They won 123-112 over the Atlanta Hawks. And if we can pop down that live banner right quick, I can show you guys the points in the paint. The points in the paint, 66-36, which was, I mean, that's going to win you the game right there. And we know that the Hawks come in with no Trae Young. We know that they come in with Clint Capella, who was playing, but he injured, and he was doubtful for game 6 or for game 5, but coming into the game, and he did play, but he wasn't effective because he got elbowed in the previous game. So we knew that they had some concerns coming in, and you know how it is, what they say in the NBA. Once you go on the road, those baskets get a little tighter, and it's harder to make shots. And it definitely was for Atlanta. They were missing threes left and right. But Brook Lopez, what a game by this man, Brook Lopez. Now, Brook Lopez has a reputation of being a little bit sloppy at times, a little bit goofy at times, but he plays his butt off, and he runs the floor. He's one of the bigs that will run the floor consistently up and down the floor. He plays hard on the defensive end of the ball. He has developed the three-point shot in his game. So Brook Lopez started off hot. I mean, he made his first 6 shots, 6 of 6 to begin the game. He ended up with 33 points, 7 rebounds, led the team in scoring. And that is huge. When you don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo, you need somebody to step up. Other than Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, they've got to step up. But you need those other players, those role players, to step up, especially at home. And Brook Lopez did not play like a role player last night. I mean, Brook Lopez played like the old Brook Lopez when he and his brother Robin, his twin brother Robin, first came into the league. So 33 points. I'm sure we will not see Brook Lopez have 33 points again in this series. but yeah, Brook Lopez, 33 points, and he had a great game. But there cannot be said about Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. We discussed on Wednesday that they are going to have a really, really good game in order for this team to survive and for this team to thrive. And when you look at all the players that are left in this series, no Trae Young, no Giannis Antetokounmpo. If you were to rank all players from top to bottom on both teams, just throw them all in a pool, I would say that Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are the number 2 and number 3 best players, or the top 2 players in the series that are left. So they're going to have big games. And we've seen them have terrific performances at home, but we've seen them struggle on the road. So they did what they're supposed to do. Chris Middleton had 26 points, 8 assists, 13 rebounds. Damn near had a triple-double. Almost messed around and have a triple-double. That's what Ice Cube said. All right, if you don't know. And then your boy Drew Holiday came in with 25 points, 13 assists. 13 assists. I believe he had 8 assists in the first half and 6 rebounds. So they had some great performances by those guys. What's going to be really key for them is if they can have the same success when they go on the road in Atlanta. And Trae Young is out with a bone bruise, but I mean, I expect him to play in a game 7. If this does go to 7, I expect him to play in a game 7. And he might play in a game 6. I'm not sure about Giannis because that was a very, very difficult injury, tough to watch, and it's tough to figure out. But they said there's no structural damage. They said that he should. There's no ligament damage. So we might see him in a game 7. But I definitely think that Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are going to be big pieces. But let's talk about who shocked me yesterday, okay? Because Giannis Antetokounmpo was out, right? So they had to have somebody fill in for him. So they had young Bobby Portis Jr. And he's not so young anymore. Bobby Portis Jr. has been in the league for a little bit, and Bobby Portis Jr. came out. He came out hotter than grease. I mean, this boy was coming out there grabbing rebounds. He was putting them back. Bobby Portis Jr. played his ass off yesterday, and he's affectionately known as Crazy Eyes. And his eyes don't really look that crazy in that picture. How about this one? Oh, yeah. That boy looked crazy. He looked crazy. He looks crazy. Crazy eyes. But they love him. This is a picture of him when he played with the Chicago Bulls. But they love him in Milwaukee, man. They were chanting last night. They were chanting Bobby, 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 and it was just great to watch. But he really brings that energy off the bench. Kind of like if you're a Clippers fan, if you remember, or if you're a real basketball fan, if you remember Reggie Evans from back in the day, he played on the Clippers. And he wasn't a scorer, he wasn't a free throw shooter, he wasn't a mid-range shooter. He was just a guy who came in and gave you energy off the bench. He gave you rebounds. He gave you the opportunity to get those second points. So Bobby Portis reminds me a lot of Reggie Evans. But yesterday he went off 22 points, three assists. 3 assists. Shout out to Bobby. Dishing the rock. And he also had eight rebounds. So Bobby Portis definitely stepped up big time. And shout out to Crazy Eyes, man. They might have a Crazy Eyes action figure someday. But yeah, it was a great game for the Milwaukee Bucks. They're at home. And when you watched the Atlanta Hawks, it was almost like they struggled to get offense because they didn't have Trae Young. And they didn't get that feel. And they never really settled in, and you just didn't feel like they had a chance. If you watched the entire game, you felt from the jump that they really didn't have a chance at all in that game. And we talked about it last episode. Bogdanovich. You almost got to roll your eyes when you say it. Bogdanovich. He had to have a good game. We thought Bogdan was going to have a great game, but he didn't. He literally. Oh, he had a decent game. But I was talking about we were going to need to see a 35, 10 type of performance because there's no Trae Young. And if you watched the game last night, they had Bogdanovich for the most part being the primary ball handler when Lou Williams was out of the game. Because, like I said before, he's led the EuroLeague in assists and points. And he's been an MVP over in Turkey. He's fully capable of stepping up and having a triple double on a night where they don't have their main primary scorer and their main primary distributor. So I thought that Bogdanovich was going to have to get score in the 30s. He scored 28, decent game. 4 assists. I was gonna need more than 4 assists from him. Although I will say that in his defense, he made some great passes. They just weren't knocking down shots. And they have shooters. They're also hurting because they don't have DeAndre Hunter, who is a good shooter in the corner. He's a good defender. Kevin Huerter, Huerter, also affectionately known as Red Velvet, had a terrible game. Huerter was hurting his team. I mean, he was just shooting and he was missing. It was a terrible night from 3-pointer from Kevin Huerter, Red Velvet. We saw him perform pretty well at home in a couple of games this preseason, but we're gonna need to see him step up in a game 6 if they want to make it to a game 7. But yeah, it was tough to see this team being out there and struggling the way they were struggling. So we'll see how Atlanta does. They're gonna need more from Lou Williams. Lou Williams came in with 17 points. Danilo Gallinari had 19 points. Shout out to him. He's coming off the bench. Collins had 19 points. We're going to need to see more from Collins. We're going to need to see from those role players at home. And like I said, when you're on the road, those baskets get a little tighter and it's harder to make shots. So hopefully Atlanta, the stadium there is lit and the crowd is really into it. And the guys are playing with a lot of motivation and a lot of hunger. And you know what they say about sports. The best 2 words in sports is game 7. So I hope that we get a game 7. I didn't want to see a game 7 for the Suns Clippers series, but we hoped for a game 7 in this series. So there's no basketball tonight, and that kills me. I love the NBA playoffs because it rolls right after March Madness. You get all those games at March Madness. You get about a 2-week break, and then boom, NBA playoffs hit you right in the mouth. And you're watching basketball every night, it feels like. So when you have a night like tonight where there's no basketball, it's like, what do I do? Do I watch the Kardashians? But yeah, so we are live on CoachellaValley.com and as well as Today's California. And we were just rehashing, just a rehash. We talked earlier in the show about the Clippers and the Suns game. The Clippers lost to the Suns. Of course, we know Kawhi Leonard was out. Man, Kawhi Leonard, you know what? Kawhi Leonard, this guy has not been good for the Clippers. Let me just go off get off on my soapbox right quick and go off on a tangent. Kawhi Leonard is not. He performed well when he was playing for the San Antonio Spurs. He had some issues with the way that they were handling his injury. He's had some issues with with the media. And then he goes and he wins a championship with them. Then he goes and wins a championship with Toronto. Then he has an issue with some other stuff as far as how, his agent and what team he's going to. Goes to the Clippers, and he never really has performed like Kawhi Leonard that we saw in Toronto and we saw in San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard is kind of like the ice cream machine at McDonald's. He's never working. All right, so I just want to say that Kawhi Leonard is, I feel sorry for the Clippers fans, and they're talking right now that he might not be a Clipper next season. There's talk that he's interested in going to Miami, maybe interested in going to Dallas, which could really work with Luka Doncic. So it'll be interesting to see where Kawhi Leonard ends up. But yes, this is Go Long Live with Barry Long 2. I thank you for joining me here. I thank you for liking the post. I thank you for sharing the post. I thank you for commenting. Coachella Valley. I want to thank CoachellaValley.com for allowing us to be on this platform. I also want to thank Today's California for allowing us to be on their platform. And thank Craig Campbell for everything that he's doing. Now, I'm a Laker fan, as you can tell. Okay, if you couldn't tell. But there is something that we're going to call Damian Lillard Watch on this show, okay? And Damian Lillard has been spotted at a LA Sparks game. So he's in town. He's at an LA Sparks game with LeBron James. And LeBron James, if you know anything about LeBron James, you know LeBron James does not do anything by accident. Everything is strategically done. So this is literally called Dame Lillard Watch. It's about to be Dame time here in LA. And I am super excited. Now, we might have to get rid of Anthony Davis. We might have to get rid of some people. We definitely can get rid of Schroeder. We do not need Schroeder. But it is something that is very, very interesting to see that these guys they made a public appearance together and they go and watch an LA Sparks game. And if you know anything about Damian Lillard and LeBron James, they have a great relationship dating back a few years now. They have been on each other's shows, on each other's podcasts. They've had a couple of famous, just FaceTimes that ended up getting leaked, talking about how they would love to play with each other. LeBron James has been quoted a few years ago saying that give me Damian Lillard and watch what happens. So it'll be interesting to watch. Dame Lillard is from California, he's from Oakland, but he definitely does not want to go and play on a team with Steph Curry. So he doesn't want to go home and play, and he wants to cement his legacy in some kind of way. And we know that the Portland Trail Blazers just hired Chauncey Billups to be their head coach. And there was a little bit of backlash from some of the fans in Portland. And Damian Lillard didn't really feel included in the decision of who they were going to bring in as head coach because his first choice was the Los Angeles Lakers former assistant head coach, Jason Kidd. That's who he wanted on the team. They said, no, we're not going after Jason Kidd because of some of his questionable past things that he's been involved in. So Damian Lillard felt left out of that decision. And if you know anything about what's going on in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers wants to be included in the decision-making process. A lot of these stars feel like they should be included in the decision-making process. When we're talking about hiring head coaches, we're talking about bringing in other players, we're talking about bringing in a GM. So these are important things to be on the lookout for. So we are under what is called Damian Lillard watch. Yes, that is the back of LeBron James' head. Y'all, that's the back of LeBron's head, okay? And so they were together at the LA Sparks game. So that is something to be on the lookout for. It is daytime. And if we know anything about the Los Angeles, they always get their guy. Always. All right. And yeah, Anthony Davis was a great couple years, bro. But we cannot have you getting hurt. And I understand that a lot of fans feel the same way that I feel. Now, we talked about last episode, my man Sons and Four guy who was being jumped by two Denver Nuggets fans, and he actually whooped their tails and beat both of them up. And I mean, he was getting some good licks in. He was getting some really good licks in. But this guy became famous because after he fought off two guys, he goes, Sons and Four. Well, he's being mobbed everywhere he goes. When he walks around Phoenix, people want to take pictures with him. He's been invited to all of the different things, all of these different events that the Phoenix Suns have as far as for their team, like pep rallies, whatever. He's being invited to all the games. I'm sure that if they do win the championship and if they win 4, oh my goodness, this guy's going to be on the podium. But he's also winning a life in social media. This guy, look at his social media. We found him on Instagram, and we're going to try to get him to come on the show because he's a star, but he's not an international star. He's not too big to show up on Go Long Live here on CoachellaValley.com. So we're going to try to get him on the show before they win the championship. His name is Nick McKellar. But, yeah, he's blown up. 68,000 followers already. So shout out to Sons and Four guy. He's really taken off, and he's kind of become that fun story behind this narrative of the Phoenix Suns and their incredible run. So next weekend, we're going to talk, on Monday after the weekend, this is going to be a 3 days a week show. On Monday, we're going to talk about Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons, he's looking real comfortable in that picture right there, ain't he? He looks like he's real comfortable. And he's making a lot of money. And this guy is overpaid. And he hasn't been, let's just say performing up to standards lately for that team and that franchise. So there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made, and we don't have time to talk about Ben Simmons today, but we will definitely get to Ben Simmons on Monday when we have a little bit of overtime in our B block. So I just want to real quick thank CoachellaValley.com for allowing me to have this platform, as well as today'scalifornia.com. And I just would like to thank everyone for commenting and liking the post and sharing the post. And once again, I'd like to thank Craig Campbell from CoachellaValley.com. And we are Go Long Live with Barry Long 2. Don't forget the 2. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, just stay inspired, stay focused, stay motivated, and remember that you're capable of anything.